our open and inclusive community of faith. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another as we each explore these paths. I would like especially to welcome our guests and welcome again those who have visited us before. Visitors, it is the custom of our congregation to invite you to stand and give your name and where you are from, if you feel comfortable doing so. Are there any visitors who would like to introduce themselves? Welcome to everyone today. Please join us after the service for coffee hour. We would love to have a chance to get to know you better. Our minister, Reverend Tom Capel, our congregational life coordinator, Mary Law, and all of our members are eager to meet you. Please feel free to approach anyone with the green cup with any question you might have. Our service can be heard outside the glass doors at the back of the sanctuary should anyone feel the need to leave the service for any reason. There are chairs provided for your convenience. Please refer to the insert in the order of service for further announcements. And as we begin our service, please silence all electronic devices. And I think we have one special announcement today.
And new. Really. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Jenny Hobbs, and I'm very happy to serve on the church's auction committee. I am happy to announce that we have started collecting donations, and I wanted to share a few of the most exciting, or that ones that I'm excited to bid on. There is a lovely doghouse that I might want to move into. It's so nice. Thank you, Vicki. Vintage treasures from around the world, beautiful original framed photography, jewelry, a women's weekend in the woods in northern Michigan. Many gift baskets are going to be included in our raffle. I was just informed that the board has donated a basket, and their theme is board games. Terrible puns. A basket full of self-care items from PMC. I have seen a few DUUC goodies from the archives, including a cookbook that some of you may remember from years gone by. It is absolutely delightful. A grown-up fairy tea party, dinner parties with cuisine from around the world. The dinner parties this year look amazing. You can bid on a week at a cottage in Michigan, and there's actually several items where you can bid on cottages. We get little getaways. Crafting parties, voice lessons. There are so many fantastic things. So what we're asking is if you've donated an item that you bring it in by next week so that we can get everything labeled and ready for the auction. So by next Sunday, if you have an item for us, please bring it in. And please, if you haven't bought your ticket yet, you can go online to purchase your tickets, or if you need assistance or want to pay with a cash or check, we're happy to help you down in Crease Hall in between the services. So thank you all so much for your support of the auction.
We light our chalice for our third principle. We believe that we should accept one another and keep on learning together.
shades of gray outside, I tell you that. I am Reverend Tom Capo, the minister here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. We're all faced with choices as we move through our existence, many of which have moral undertones. Sometimes we rely on simple moral absolutes, those behaviors that we consider right and other behaviors we consider wrong. But today in our world, it can seem like we need more information because the world is so complex. It's hard to rely on moral absolutism to help us to make decisions. So today we're going to explore moral decision-making, and particularly looking at absolutes and those moral gray areas. I'd like to start by offering you these words by Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Samuel A. Trumbore. Goodness is a means, not an end. Look within. Who can prevent a jealous thought from urging us to protect our hearts? Who can ward off the uncertainties that disturb the mind before we decide to act? Were perfection required to be good, all human existence would be a living hell. Believe otherwise. Embodying love is the endless means to do good. In each moment, love stands at our side, ready to be chosen. Choose wisely.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me in saying our mission statement, which is printed in your order of service and projected to your left. And please remain standing for our first hymn. We gather as an inclusive community to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world for fairness, love, and compassion. These words by Martha Dallas. I'm curious to know what you believe about what is the best food. Think about that for a moment. And if you're wondering what I mean exactly, I leave it to each of you to interpret as you choose. What do you believe is the best food? When you have one in your mind, please raise your hand. Okay, and as I look across the room, I'll just point in your general direction, and please tell us what the food is that you have chosen. Joe?
Hot fresh bread.
Hot fresh bread, okay. Yeah. Guacamole. Guacamole. Bill?
Hungarian burka sausage.
Hungarian
Burka sausage.
burka?
Burka.
Burka.
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, you've just been there. Yeah, Mike.
Strawberries.
Strawberries. Tina. Pickled herring. After my own heart. Who else? There was some, yeah. Chocolate. Yes. Oysters. You're a more nutritious group than the early service. Yeah, Dave. Wine and spirits. Here we go. Yeah. Now, let's keep going. I'm wondering what one word you would use to describe your best food. What's the one word? The texture, the flavor, where you bought it? What's the one word? Yeah. Blissful. Luscious. Briny. Ooh. Savory from back there. Sweet. Tender. And tender. Crunchy. And crunchy.
Comfort.
Comfort. Feels like comfort. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. So many, such a diversity, and as I say, definitely healthier. The blood work will look better on this crowd. Now, I believe that for many of you, perhaps even most of you, the food that you believe is the best today will not be what you believe is the best tomorrow, maybe, or in the rest of your life. I believe it's very possible for that best food to get knocked from its throne and replaced by a different food, a new best food. So what has to happen in order for this to occur? What must you do? We, as Unitarian Universalists, affirm the freedom to believe what we choose about food, and also about larger issues such as, why are we here? What is the meaning of our lives? What's most important and valuable to me? How can I be most true to the purpose I see for my being alive in the world? What are our morals and beliefs, and how do we live them out in the world? We have the responsibility to work out our beliefs and morals with thought and care. And we do this in community, offering each other tastes of ideas that feel true. It's like together, we each bring our best food to share at a potluck. We each bring our treasured beliefs to share with one another here in our congregation. And we can put several on our plate. First, the ones we're confident that we like, and then we can maybe go back for seconds, for a chance to try something that our friends recommend, and sometimes what our friends recommend becomes our new favorite.
I'd like to offer now a meditation written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Laura Gordon Ludwig. Each of us has our own way of entering into a some of you, it might be sitting up straight and putting your feet flat, resting your hands in your lap, and letting your eyes gently close or rest. And taking a deep breath as you bring your attention inside yourself. Spirit of life and love. We are here because we believe what we do matters. We are here because we believe how we live matters. That with every act of kindness or meanness, courage or fear, love or hate, we are weaving the fabric of the universe. We are here because we need encouragement, because we need strength, because so often we get distracted, we get in a rush, we don't think, we choose the easy way, when the harder path is what our spirits truly long for. We are here because none of us is perfect, but together we inspire one another to try again, to take a step. We are here because we have felt the stirrings of love and grace in our hearts and hands, and we crave for more of that. For ourselves, but not only for ourselves, for everyone. We are here because how we live matters to us and to all those beyond these walls. Amen and blessed be. I am the Lord thy God, which has brought forth thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord thy God in vain.
Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations.
Honor thy father and thy mother.
A free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
Thou shalt not kill.
The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Thou shalt not covet.
Respect for the interdependent web of all things, of all existence, of which we are a part.
How do we make decisions about what is right and what is wrong? Moral decisions. We certainly could base our decisions on black and white, concrete rules like the Ten Commandments. Don't murder, don't steal, don't covet. These sound pretty definitive and kind of simple to understand. But haven't we experienced life? Life is not so black and white. Often it is much, much more gray, requiring a more sophisticated decision-making process, one that not only assesses the facts but also factors in our personal values and philosophies, perhaps even our Unitarian Universalist principles. And our decisions are based on other things. Questions like, what's the greater good in this particular situation? What's the power differential in this system? Who is of greater need? Applying our Unitarian Universalist principles in our daily interactions, choosing to have our actions be guided by them, is a little complicated. Answers to questions are not so simple. Doing what's right, consistent with our values, is sometimes complicated, bothersome, inconvenient, difficult to discern, even risky. I personally, because I am a Unitarian Universalist, choose to make my way through the grocery store a little bit more deliberately, particularly in the chocolate aisle. You see, I don't want to buy chocolate that's harvested by child slaves. I also don't eat at Chick-fil-A because the owners of the franchise use their money to oppose causes for lesbians, bisexuals, gay, transgender, queer. I try not to buy anything from China because of the poor working conditions in the factories. And I put considerable energy into building relationships with people of color, people from different cultures, and with people who are marginalized. Do I, at least a few times a day, ask myself, is my choice consistent with my Unitarian Universalist principles? Well, actually I do, Part of being a minister, I think. Am I always consistent in living out my Unitarian Universalist principles? Well, as Sam Trumbore writes in our opening words, Were perfection required to be good, all human existence would be a living hell. Each of you, I know, make your own choices in living out your morals, living out your beliefs, embodying perhaps your Unitarian Universalist principles. As you reflect on our principles, one thing you might notice is they're not really black and white. Not like the Ten Commandments. They're kind of like what Captain Barbarossa, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies would say. The pirate code is more like what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. And that's how it is with Unitarian Universalist principles. They're more guidelines than actual rules. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We affirm and promote the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Lofty ideals, admirable goals. What does that actually look like? Exactly. The point I want to make here is that it could take a lifetime of discernment to decide what those principles mean to you and how you can live them out in your life. With one caveat. Sometimes we get so caught up in talking about and thinking about something, our principles. We can be captivated by exploring, considering, thinking about our principles, that if we eventually get to living them out, they're somewhat blunted or diffused. I want to share with you an article on how video games are now considering how to introduce morality into gaming. The emergence of morality in video games is arguably one of the most important innovations of the medium to date. Like in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, giving players moral choices is a progressive development in games that adds more weight and substance to a player's decisions, leading to more immersive and satisfying experiences. Whether it's abstaining from shooting civilians while infiltrating a terrorist cell, or saving or harvesting little sisters, I'm not sure what that means, or holding the fate of the capital wasteland's people in your hands, moral decision-making in games is becoming an increasingly popular aspect of game development. But is it an illusion? Morality is not black and white. Reality is seldom as simple as a choice between good and evil. The spectrum of moral behaviors is as complicated and as consequential as our own emotions. Instead of mirroring this complexity and including moral choices that lead to genuine in-game consequences, video games often do the opposite. They present a watered-down version of moral choice that ultimately results in players having to choose between good and evil. To harvest or not to harvest, to be a paragon or a renegade, to kill innocents or to save them, to have a halo or devil horns. In a nutshell, morality refers to the codes of conduct that form the backbone of a society. Generally, morality is more concerned with how people should behave rather than how they do behave. Morality can change over time and takes on new meanings as people and environments evolve. For example, slavery was once accepted as morally permissible, whereas now it is accepted that enslaving others is immoral. In philosophy, morality and ethics go hand in hand. Morality pertains to certain rules and codes of conduct, while ethics pertain to the application of these rules in society. Now, before we go too much further, how many know what Call of Duty, BioShock, Mass Effect, Infamous, and Fable 2 are? I've got 1, 2. Okay, everybody else in the congregation, there are 4 people in the back. Ask them after the service what those are. So I want to explore this. Morality pertains to certain rules and codes of conduct, while ethics pertains to the application of those rules in society. As members of this church, we are like the game makers. Individually and as a community, we develop rules or codes of conduct that offer a frame of reference for moral decision making as we live out our values, our principles in the wider world. Living our values daily, applying our principles in society, we develop an ethical way of seeing the world, an ethical perspective, and we try to express that through our behavior. So how do we develop these codes of conduct, these morals that we live out in the world? Well, through a process of experience, reflection, sharing our lives with other people. But let me get a little more clear about that. This past week, I attended a Unitarian Universalist ministers retreat. Mark Hicks, a professor of religious education at the Unitarian Universalist Seminary, Meadville, Lombard, talked with us about a new theory of faith development that he wants us as Unitarian Universalists to consider, thinking of this process for both beliefs and morals. The traditional theory of faith development that many Unitarian Universalists have embraced, was James Fowler's Stages of Faith. There's James there, and the stages of faith. So these stages start with primal. So you're born. And the only thing you know about faith is whether or not you're going to get fed or your diapers are going to get changed. As you grow older, you hear things from your parents, you hear things at church if you go to church, you begin to develop some other ideas, sometimes magical, sometimes more concrete. As you get into adolescence, you may reject some of those. As you grow older, you begin to see that faith is not as black and white, and you see the shades of gray, the paradoxes within your own belief system. And then finally, the sixth stage, which very few people actually get to, he says, is a special grace that makes people seem more lucid, more simple, yet somehow more fully human than the rest of us. And he says the people that get there are very rare, like Mother Teresa or Gandhi. So many of us go from 0 to 5. But Fowler also says that, oops, one more thing. There we go. Fowler also says that you can go through any of these stages and at some point reach a plateau and stay there. And he says probably in 3 or 4 or 5, you can have a relatively satisfying spiritual life. Okay? On to the next one now. All right. Mark feels like these stages don't really speak to Unitarian Universalists as far as faith development is concerned. According to Mark, the lower part of this diagram, this lower part here, which says wrought across it, is a new theory of faith development that he wants to suggest for Unitarian Universalists. The top part is what Mark refers to as, Fowler's stages of faith. We're caught by our parents and exposed to a faith. We're taught about that faith. We choose to buy into it or not. And then we seek out, as we grow older, perhaps other ways to believe, other ways to find morals and ethics and beliefs. So, caught, taught, bought, sought. That's what he calls Fowler. But he says this second, the ones on the bottom, these are the wrought faith. And that's where he wants us to consider us as Unitarian Universalists. In this model, faith is seen as a lifelong process, a collaborative process, a process of intentional, regular, personal reflection. He says a wrought faith is foundational to how we see ourselves, a faith that you create individually as you live in the world, and a faith built in a community like this one, a covenanted faith. He also says a wrought faith is best built in a community where other people are on that same wrought faith journey. So it's individual and it's collaborative. He says a wrought faith is not weakened by collaboration, but is strengthened, worked like metal worked on an anvil through a lifetime of considering, discussing, and sharing. That's why he has this anvil on the far right here. That as we move through our lives and we work with our faith, it can become stronger. Our morals, too, can become stronger. But a person with a wrought faith is a person who is willing to look at his or her or their beliefs, morals, values, even our Unitarian Universalist principles, discerning what works, what doesn't work, and what would make our morals and values, our beliefs, more impactful, more of a force in the world. Perhaps bringing about our dreams for a better world. This means we have to be willing to reflect on and discuss even our most treasured beliefs, even our most treasured morals. That's why the Unitarian Universalist Association has built into its bylaws to intentionally, regularly reflect on, modify, even change our principles, to be sure that they still reflect who we are and to strengthen their impact on the world. And also their impact on us. Do they strengthen our own faith journeys, our own belief systems? I talked about this idea at the Conscious Aging group on Thursday night. We were discussing what age people in the group felt they were. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It was surprising to hear that very many of our members of the Conscious Aging group felt young spiritually. They might have felt older physically, even mentally, but they felt very young spiritually. They have just come into that wrought faith that we're talking about, of exploration, of understanding, since they came to this church, or since they were exposed to Unitarian Universalism. So it's only now that they're searching, struggling, discussing, discerning what their faith is, both as individuals and within this community. We've probably all, in one form or fashion, considered what our morals are, how we make moral decisions in the world. But we're also part of this faith community, and thus we're called upon to develop communal morals and ethics. How are we going to live our communal morals and beliefs in the world? Well, we've done that here to some extent. One way that we've done it here is we've decided on certain things that we all affirm, promote, support, moral statements, if you would. We've done this twice, saying that we support marital equality and women's reproductive rights, These are issues that any member of this church can go out into the community and say, my church stands for these. Because we've all decided that's what it is. Another way that we communally develop our morals is to decide where our energies and resources should be spent. We decided a few years ago on a social justice initiative, racial equity and restorative justice. And we want to make a difference in the city and the state in these areas through our actions. That's our ethics. We cannot do everything, but we can do something. So as a community, we have a vision, a dream for a future with increased racial equity and with a justice system that helps those who are incarcerated change their lives so that they can return to this community, to our larger community, with hope, perhaps even with a job, perhaps even with a support system. Your leadership and your social justice committee have asked things like, how are our resources supporting this dream, this social justice initiative? What actions do we need to start taking today to make an impact on our world, to make this dream, this initiative, a reality? And what will we pass on to those who come after us to continue making this dream a reality? We're also considering what gifts people have and what each person is willing to do to support this dream, this initiative. Some people in this church want to mentor disadvantaged and discriminated against youth. Some people in this church want to lobby for laws to rid prisons of solitary confinement. Some people in this church want to write letters to incarcerated people to give them hope, to help them explore their spirituality, to offer a connection to at least one other person outside of that prison, to develop a positive relationship that might impact their future. As the Buddha said, drop by drop is the water pot filled. Likewise, the wise one, gathering it little by little, fills up with good. This social justice initiative is part of our communal wrought faith, our communal morals and ethics. And we will continue to reflect on, discuss, and figure out what works to live out this initiative today. And over time, we will continue to reflect on, change, adapt, find new ways to do this work, strengthening the effect of this initiative. We might even reach a point where we decide to change our social justice initiative, because that is what we do, because we have a wrought faith. We will look at, consider, and change. My friends, this is your covenanted community for you personally to develop your own wrought faith. And there are no limits to what you can discuss with each other as you struggle with your faith, as you try to strengthen your faith. All of our faiths are wrought faiths. And we must do personal reflection and get some community support as we wrought our faith. And as a community, we also need a communal wrought faith to make our dreams for a better world come true, drop by drop. We do not and will not have static faiths here, individually or communally, because we change through a lifetime, through our experiences, through our physiological development, and the world changes. We must be willing to explore new and different beliefs, new and different moral codes, always willing to find the beliefs or codes that strengthen us and have a positive impact on the world. In the spirit of a wrought faith, I thought I would offer you some words that allow you this morning to struggle with your own faith individually and think about our own faith as a community. The words I've chosen are by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of your hands, the reaches of your heart, the gifts of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these could feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. But also any of these can be used to draw down the prison door, to hoard bread, to abandon the poor, to obscure what is holy, to comply with injustice, or to withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world? The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will. It is a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for the beauty and for the rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, but it can also take you into community. The endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith. The life of ritual, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us can save the world alone, but together, there is another possibility out there waiting.
We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this, and we commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and hope. The morning's offering for the work of this church will now be given and received.
Don't waste your breath, don't waste my time. If I hear one more excuse, I lose my mind. It's been a quiet war behind closed doors. Ain't it getting hard to keep your balance anymore? Walking on a wire, higher and higher. You're told the truth, but you're still a liar. Walking on a wire. You deal in black and
extinguish our chalice, but our work is not yet done. It's time for us to live out a wrought faith, remembering our third principle that we must accept one another and encourage one another to spiritual growth. Please rise in body or spirit, and let's join together in singing our closing hymn, 1008 in the teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. The words are here on your left. The mystery that breaks into every moment, giving you an opportunity to create a faith that is wrought throughout a lifetime. I invite you now to turn around and greet one another. Let us share the love of this community with one another.